Fatty Fu revealed something shocking just now. If there was an outer sect examination and it was an open secret, then why hadn't Shun Long heard anything about it? Fatty Fu saw that Shun Long had stayed quiet, so he explained. It's an open secret because only people who have been in the sect for more than 3 years know about it. This test mostly concerns the newest 60,000 disciples that join the sect every 3 years, so why would the older disciples go about spreading the news of a sect examination for no reason? Shun Long understood that Fatty's words made perfect sense. Why would the older disciples help the new ones for no reason? Although there must definitely be some new disciples that know about the sect exams, there can't be too many of them. Probably only people like Xiao Shurtu, who have an older brother inside the sect, would know about it. The rest of the disciples are most likely kept in the dark until the sect examination begins. Shun Long thought to himself and surmised that, even if he wasn't completely correct, the truth probably wouldn't be that far off from his guess. When Luwen thought about the sect rewards, his eyes shone as he said, "Brother, don't take the sect examination lightly. Just the rewards for the top 3, and even the top 10, are enough to make me jealous." Shun Long couldn't help himself as he asked, "Fatty, do you know what the rewards are?" "Haha, I knew that you would be interested. I don't know if the prizes for this year will be different, but 3 years ago the first place winner got a spatial ring, a rank 1 silver grade sword, and 10.000 sect points." Fatty Fu and Luwen were both trying to rouse Shun Long's interest in the rewards, and indeed they were successful as soon as Fatty mentioned the spatial ring. Shun Long was embarrassed when he thought of his previous visit to the treasure pavilion and how he had to carry 40 sets of medicinal herbs like they were cabbages. However, Luwen's next words were like a bucket of cold water to Shun Long. "The top 3 is probably to be impossible for you, brother. However, if you can manage to somehow reach the early rank 8, you can try to get a good place at the exam." Shun Long looked at Luwen, who continued, "It's not that I'm looking down on you, brother, but there will be disciples who have reached the peak of rank 3 in Earth grade, while you still are at the peak of rank 6. No matter how talented you may be, you can't fight someone who is 6 small realms higher than you." Shun Long understood that Luwen was only looking out for him, and he was just trying to be realistic. After all, how could someone who is barely cultivated for less than 5 months by now fight against Earth grade experts? Usually, the outer sect examination takes place in the demonic mountain region, but there are some rumors circulating that this year's sect examination will be different compared to last times. After Fatty Fu finished speaking, he took Shun Long and Luwen to the mystifying fragrance pavilion, where they spent 3 hours before deciding to split up. As soon as Shun Long returned to the inn, he entered his room and started to ponder over what he had learned today. Since the information came from Fatty, it must definitely be true. In that case, I only have 2 months to strengthen myself before the outer sect examination begins. I also need to refine the 40 sets of ingredients that I purchased from the treasure pavilion into medicinal pills before the day of the auction arrives, or I may miss the fire spirit fruit and the water element grass, since I don't know what their final price in the auction is going to be. Shun Long then took a deep breath before he decided to first refine the 40 sets of rank 1 medicinal ingredients that he had into chi barrier-breaking pills. He sat on the floor as he warmed up his cauldron before starting refining the pills. Refining 40 sets of medicinal ingredients was very taxing to Shun Long. After 14 days of constant refinement, he had finally refined all the herbs into pills when the day of the auction finally arrived. The day of the treasure pavilion's auction had finally arrived. It was already morning, yet Shun Long was still exhausted, lying down on his bed with his eyes closed, as he had been refining pills nonstop with barely any time for himself to cultivate. However, the results were beyond his expectations. He had managed to fill 12 bottles with chi barrier-breaking pills for a total of 120 pills. In other words, he hadn't failed once in his refinement in the past 14 days. Although part of it was due to the monarch's domained cheat-like ability that froze time around him, after refining pills for so long, Shun Long's alchemy skills had also advanced exponentially. Looking at the pill bottles that were scattered around on the floor, all of them filled to the brim, Shun Long felt satisfied with himself. After 2 hours of rest, he stood up from his bed and washed himself, before gathering all the pill bottles from the floor as he started heading towards the treasure pavilion. After checking that he had everything he needed with him, including his VIP card and the invitation for the auction, Shun Long found a secluded corner where he changed into his black robes before walking towards the pavilion's entrance. Although there were 3 hours until the Treasure Pavilion's auction begun, there was already a huge line outside the entrance. All of them were disciples wanting to participate in the auction. Shun Long had no other choice but to walk towards the end of the line, as he patiently waited for his turn to enter. A pair of young outer disciples who were waiting in front of Shun Long had started chatting. "Hey, I heard that the fee to enter the auction is 100 sect points. Do you think everyone in front of us has that many sect points? TSK, what do you know? You won't even be able to buy the cheapest things with 100 sect points in the auction. This fee is just to stop people from overcrowding the auction when they don't have any sect points, and yet they still try to enter." The second young man clicked his tongue as he looked disapprovingly at the man beside him. Half an hour passed like this, when suddenly a person in green clothes walked from the side of the line, completely ignoring the people queuing up, as he headed straight for the Treasure Pavilion's entrance. "Hey, where's this guy Goys?" The young man in front of Shun Long was about to protest before the man next to him slapped his head from behind. "Do you want to die? Don't you see that he is wearing inner sect disciple robes? So what? There are other inner sect disciples here and they are also queuing up in front of us, so why can this guy walk all the way to the entrance? How ignorant can you be? He probably has an invitation from the pavilion." The man next to him was exasperated as he kicked his friend. As soon as these words left his mouth, they both fell silent, while the young man in green clothes had completely ignored the discussions around him as he walked towards the entrance. There, 2 young women in outer disciples' robes welcomed him, as the young man showed them his shiny silver-colored invitation. After verifying it, the 2 young women politely escorted him inside. As soon as Shun Long had seen the man's invitation, he understood how dumb he himself was. Of course those with an invitation wouldn't have to wait in line for so many hours. Shun Long left the line as he walked straight to the pavilion's entrance. "Hey, isn't that the man who was behind us just now? Senior brother, don't tell me that you think that he also has an invitation." The 2 young men that were in front of Shun Long had started conversing again as they saw him nearing the pavilion's entrance. The senior brother didn't comment, but he just quietly shook his head, indicating that this man probably wouldn't have an invitation. After all, the invitations from the pavilion weren't cabbages. Shun Long ignored the discussions around him, as 2 young girls in outer disciple robes asked him for his invitation. When Shun Long took out his shiny silver invitation, the 2 young girls inspected it before one of them rushed inside quickly. "Haha, senior brother, do you think that this guy came here with a fake invitation? Or else why haven't they granted him entry yet?" "Haha, your guess makes sense, junior brother. I think that you are probably right." Just when the crowd around Shun Long was sneering at him for trying to enter with a fake invitation, a hurried voice was heard rushing from inside the pavilion. "Senior, please excuse me for making you wait." When the people outside saw the owner of this voice, their jaws all dropped to the ground as the area outside the pavilion had suddenly turned so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. The person that was hurriedly rushing from the pavilion was Shing, the genius rank 3 bronze grade alchemist of the Treasure Pavilion. Every invitation from the Treasure Pavilion had the personal mark of the person who had created it, and Shing's invitation wasn't any different. Since he knew that this senior would be coming today, Shing had ordered the people at the entrance to immediately inform him if a person who was dressed in black robes and was carrying his invitation were to appear today. As soon as the disciples stationed at the entrance recognized Shing's personal mark in Shun Long's invitation, they rushed to inform him that the person he was waiting for had arrived, and Shing in turn hurried towards the entrance. "Senior, please come in." As soon as Shun Long and Shing had disappeared inside the pavilion, the people outside started whispering. "Senior brother, could it be that this person is some kind of senior alchemist who is of even higher rank than alchemistine? Wouldn't such a person be at the silver grade then?" His senior brother nodded his head as he said, he must definitely be at least in the silver grade if Senior came rushing and was so polite to him." While these discussions were taking place at the pavilion's entrance, Shing was guiding Shun Long deep inside the first floor, towards the depths of the Treasure Pavilion, where 2 huge doors were wide open and guards were stationed at the sides. Shun Long followed Yin Xing as they entered inside, and he noticed that there were two paths that they could follow. One path was leading straight ahead after entering the doors, towards the outer seats where people, without invitations, would sit. Yin Xing instead led Shun Long through the side entrance until they reached the private booths, where only people with invitations were allowed to seat themselves. "Senior, this way please," Yin Xing said as he pointed towards a private booth with the number 6 on it. Shun Long entered inside, and Yin Xing followed behind him. Although the room was relatively small, in terms of luxuriousness, it was perhaps even superior to the mystifying fragrance pavilion. The room had a luxurious red couch in the center, and a table in front of it filled with food and wine. The treasure pavilion had paid a lot of attention to the decorations of these rooms, as they were all meant for important people. Shun Long took a look at the room before turning his head to look at Yin Xing, who was standing behind him and was looking at him eagerly. Shun Long laughed before saying in that altered, heavy voice of his, "Do you have anything that you want to ask?" Yin Xing hurriedly shook his head as he answered, "No, senior. I just wanted to know if you find everything to your liking." "Yes, everything is good so far. Especially this couch that is made from the fur of a peak rank 2 scarlet-furred wolf," Shun Long answered. Yin Xing's eyes shone as he said, "As expected from a great alchemist such as Senior, you understood what the couch is made from just by throwing a single glance at it." Yin Xing was honestly impressed by Shun Long. A great alchemist had to know not just how to mix medicinal herbs, but also have a wide knowledge regarding magical beasts. Shun Long, of course, had absorbed so much knowledge regarding medicinal herbs, magical beasts, and even the human body, that it was child's play for him to understand that this couch was made from the fur of a peak rank 2 magical beast. Yin Xing looked at Shun Long eagerly as he asked, "Senior, do you happen to have any more of those chi barrier-breaking pills?" Shun Long just smiled under his robes as Yin Xing continued, "To tell the truth to Senior, the 5 chi barrier-breaking pills that Senior sold to our treasure pavilion last time were bought by 2 high-rank elders of our sect, and they have been pressuring me about them ever since." Shun Long felt somewhat afraid inside, as if his identity were to be exposed. Who knew how the sect would react if they were to learn that a rank 7 outer disciple can refine these kinds of medicinal pills? He took a deep breath to steel his nerves and said in a very heavy and stern voice to Yin Xing, "I hope that there won't be any people learning of our deal. Otherwise you can forget about obtaining a single pill for me in the future." Yin Xing could make out the irritation in Shun Long's voice and hurriedly said, "Senior, please rest assured. Although I said that the pills were bought from some mysterious senior, Yin Xing would never leak things that Senior doesn't want other people to know." Shun Long nodded his head and said, "That's good then." Then he took out 12 bottles of pills, with 10 pills inside each bottle as he said, "Here are 120 chi barrier-breaking pills. Do you think you can put them up in today's auction?" Yin Xing's eyes shone with excitement when he saw the pills. Yin Xing's eyes shone with excitement as he happily nodded his head at Shun Long's question. The higher-ups of the treasure pavilion had pressured him quite a lot to reveal the creator of these special chi barrier-breaking pills. However, when they noticed that Yin Xing wouldn't reveal anything, they eventually gave up, but they still told him that he had to do everything he can to get more of these pills. Yin Xing had heard that some of the seniors in the sect had gifted these pills to their disciples, and just a few days ago, 3 of those disciples who had consumed these pills had left seclusion, while their cultivations had skyrocketed from the peak of rank 6 in chi condensation all the way to the middle of rank 7. This was many months of hard work, all skipped thanks to one pill. It was natural that people would go crazy for it. Yin Xing received the pills as he said to Shun Long with excitement, "Don't worry, Senior, I will definitely place the pills at the end of the auction." Shun Long shook his head as he said, "I want you to put the pills at the start of the auction. The closer to the start, the better, actually. I also want you to sell them in 4 different batches, 30 pills at a time." Yin Xing was baffled as he asked Shun Long, "But Senior, isn't it better to put them towards the end of the auction so that they can be sold for a higher price? Usually, the more expensive goods are always placed at the ending of the auctions." Shun Long knew that Yin Xing was right, but he wanted to know how much the chi barrier-breaking pills would be sold for, so he could use the sect points from the profits to bid for the fire spirit fruit and the water element grass. Xing didn't seem to understand, but he still listened to Shun Long and left the room to quickly arrange for the chi barrier-breaking pills to be auctioned as early as possible. Shun Long sat on the couch, and he could see everyone below who was sitting on the batter seats, while he also had a clear view of the main stage, where the auctioneer would stand on. Time quickly passed, and soon, 2 hours had already gone by. The private rooms were now almost full, while the outer seats below didn't have any more room for people to sit. The lights of the auction hall slowly dimmed as a beautiful young woman in green clothes had appeared at the main stage down below. Shun Long's eyes widened as he recognized her. The young woman smiled at the crowd as she said, "Honorable guests, welcome to our Treasure Pavilion's monthly auction. Lan Jingjing, will act as your auctioneer today. I hope that you are all excited, as we have many special treasures for today's auction." As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd in the outer seats started to silently discuss. "Isn't that Miss Lan Jingjing? I thought that she acts as the auctioneer only for the yearly auctions of the Treasure Pavilion. Why is she participating in the auction of this month? I also saw Elder Lu Niu and Elder Meng Liang enter earlier. Could it be that there are some special treasures in this auction?" The beautiful auctioneer, Lan Jingjing, was the girl who was next to the stunning Lu Mei whom Shun Long had met when he visited the Alchemist's Guild. Lan Jingjing gestured with her hand, and the crowd quietened as she started speaking. "I'm certain that everyone here knows the rules. Every item starts with a minimum price, and the guests with the highest bid in the end can obtain them. Without further ado, this month's auction officially starts now," Lan Jingjing said as she clapped her hands, and 2 outer disciples carried the first item for the auction on the main stage, a black bow. "Dear guests, the first item for today's auction is a creation of Master Dugu's, the air-piercing bow. As you all may know, Formation Master Dugub is a rank 1 silver grade Formation Master, and although this bow is merely at the pinnacle of rank 3 bronze grade, it is a perfect weapon for anyone below the heaven grade who is proficient in archery. The minimum bid is 1,000 sect points, and every increment must be at least 50 sect points higher than the last bid, 1050, 1120, 1190. In the end, the black bow was sold for 1,500 sect points to an outer disciple girl who was sitting at the outer seats. After 2 more items were sold, the auctioneer Lan Jingjing took a deep breath as she said, "The 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th items in today's auction are a bit special. Originally, our Treasure Pavilion would put them towards the end of the auction, but the senior who sold them insisted on them being auctioned at the start. A small table was carried at the center of the main stage, and 3 small bottles with 10 pills inside them could be seen as Lan Jingjing continued explaining. These are some very special chi barrier-breaking pills that can help people at the peak of rank 6 to directly advance to rank 7. Our pavilion has also verified that there is a high chance for those who consume these pills to directly reach the middle of rank 7 in chi condensation." As soon as these words were spoken, before Lan Jingjing could list the minimum price of the pills, the crowd had already erupted in an uproar. Lan Jingjing understood how amazing these pills were. As a cultivator, directly skipping a minor stage of a rank in cultivation would save you at least a few months of work. However, she still motioned for the crowd to quiet down as she said, "There are a total of 120 pills for sale this time. All of them will be auctioned in 4 batches of 30 pills." When the crowd heard that, many people in the crowd were disheartened that they couldn't buy each pill individually, but the eyes of the richer people inside the private rooms were shining as they were eagerly waiting to start bidding. "Who knew I would be so lucky today? I came here for the golden lion cub, but stumbled upon this instead. Haha, Meng Liang, I'm sure that I have more sect points than you. Can you afford to not bid for these chi barrier-breaking pills? But if you do, then how are you going to compete with me for the golden lion cub?" The voices originated from 2 different private rooms. The 2 people who spoke were Elder Lu Niu and Elder Meng Liang. Although the 2 of them were friends and were used to bantering with each other, Elder Meng Liang knew that Lu Niu was right. He gritted his teeth as he said to a young disciple who was standing beside him inside the private room, "Quickly return to the family and ask the patriarch for more sect points. Inform him that the chi barrier-breaking pills have appeared in the auction, and we probably won't have enough sect points to bid for the golden lion cub later." The young man quickly acknowledged the order as he rushed back to quickly inform his patriarch. The starting price for the first 3 bottles of pills is 6,000 sect points, and every increment must be at a minimum of 100 sect points. The crowd below was startled at just the starting price of the pills, but the people in the private rooms weren't daunted at all by the high price. 7,000. 8,000. Li Wei bid 10.000 sect points. I hope that the fellow Taoists will give me some face. Suddenly, an elderly voice shouted. As soon as this voice was heard, many people stopped bidding. Elder Lu Niu said then, "If Senior Li Wei wishes to purchase this batch of pills, then of course, I won't compete with you. Right? I am intrigued by this new recipe to create the qi barrier-breaking pill. Even though it's a low-level pill, it can prove helpful in my research," Li Wei answered from his private room. Shun Long frowned that this old man wanted to purchase his batch of pills, and for such a low price. Shun Long had originally estimated that every 3 bottles of qi barrier-breaking pills would be sold for at least 12.000 sect points, but this old man shamelessly used his status when bidding to deter others from competing with him. As an accomplished rank 1 silver-grade alchemist, people would be unwilling to offend Li Wei just for 3 bottles of pills, especially when there were 9 more bottles for sale. However, Shun Long was clearly dissatisfied with Li Wei's way of manipulating the prices, so he shouted in a heavy voice, 15.000 sect points. Everyone was agape as they heard Shun Long's altered voice. Not just because 15.000 sect points was an astonishing amount of sect points, but because someone dared to so openly go against alchemist Li Wei. Who is that person? I wonder who is this person who doesn't even give alchemist Li face. Li Wei frowned, and his voice was full of displeasure as he asked, "This friend, I wonder who you are? Are you certain that you want to bid against me?" "TSK, old man, you think you can get my pills for free? Today you'll either lose all your face or your money. As for obtaining the recipe for my qi barrier-breaking pills, that's just wishful thinking," Shun Long thought inside, as he felt that he had just released all his anger with his bid. Li Wei waited for a response, but since he received no reply, he declared in a voice that was obviously feeling extremely irritated, 20.000 sect points. "If this friend is willing to offer more than this old man, then I will allow you to get these qi barrier-breaking pills here," he said as he looked towards Shun Long's private room. "Ha ha ha, congratulations, alchemist Li. I wouldn't pay 20.000 sect points for a few rank 1 pills, but I must still congratulate you for being so well off that you can easily squander 20.000 sect points like that," Shun Long said laughingly. Originally, tampering with the prices by bidding for one's own treasures during the auction was forbidden, but since only Yin Xing knew that the black-robed Shun Long was the seller of the pills, Li Wei couldn't find out anything if Yin Xing didn't betray him. In the end, the first 3 bottles of qi barrier-breaking pills were purchased by Li Wei for the price of 20.000 sect points, but he was actually extremely angry and determined to find out who this black-robed man was as soon as the auction was over. Lan Jingjing sent someone to deliver the pills to Li Wei's private room as well as collect the payment of the 20.000 sect points, before 2 other disciples brought forth the next 3 bottles of pills. Many people in the private rooms bid for the pills the second time around, and in the end, this batch was purchased by Elder Lu Niu for 12.700 sect points. The 3rd batch and 4th batch of pills were all sold at 13.000 and 14.000 points each. Yin Xing arrived at Shun Long's private room, and he was holding a sect-identifying jade in his hands as he said respectfully, "Senior, I have come to deliver you the sect points." The final amount that the pills were sold for was 59.700 sect points. Extracting the 5% fee of our treasure pavilion, which comes at 2.985, the total amount that we owe Senior comes down to 56.715 sect points. Yin Xing then transferred the sect points to Shun Long, and just as he was about to speak, Lan Jingjing's voice sounded, as she introduced the next item of the auction. "Honorable guests, our next item is a rare rank 2 medicinal herb that I am sure many of you are interested in. It is the water element grass. Our next item is a rare rank 2 medicinal herb, the water element grass." As soon as Lan Jingjing finished speaking, Shun Long's eyes shone brightly as his attention was all focused on the main stage of the hall where two disciples were carrying a bottle with a blue-colored grass inside it. The minimum bid for this water element grass will be 500 sect points, and every increment has to be at least 50 sect points. 600, 700, 1,000. Shun Long's heavy voice was heard from inside the private room. 1,100. Surprisingly, a young man's voice was heard from the outer seats as he competed with Shun Long for the water element grass. 2,000, Shun Long said in the same tone as before. The water element grass was extremely important to him as he needed it to refine the rank tube internal destruction pill. The young man from below contemplated for a bit, but still gritted his teeth as he declared. 2,200 sect points. It was obvious that this young man also needed the water element grass. 3,000, Shun Long called again, making the young man in the outer seats to feel dejected. People in the hall were shocked that the price of the water element grass had reached double of its market price. Usually a stock of water element grass would be sold for 1,300 sect points. Even if the price went up, it wouldn't exceed 1,500 sect points, but Shun Long had already bid 3,000 sect points for it. After Shun Long's bid of 3,000 sect points, no one competed with him for the water element grass any longer, and the staff of the treasure pavilion sent someone to deliver it to his private room, as well as collect the payment. After Shun Long got his hands on the water element grass, he mumbled, "Now all I need is the fire spirit fruit." Yin Xing looked like he something to say something, but he didn't know how to say it. Shun Long turned his eyes at him and said, "If you want to say something, just say it." Yin Xing nodded his head as he responded, "Senior, although no one of the upper echelons of our pavilion would care even if they knew that you slightly inflated the price of the first 3 bottles of chi barrier-breaking pills, I'm afraid that problems could arise due to Senior Li's identity. Senior Li is a high-ranking member in our floating cloud sect, and I fear that he may try to create some problems for Senior when you leave our treasure pavilion." Shun Long nodded at Yin Xing's words, but he couldn't show any fear for Li Wei, or that could expose his identity. After all, Shun Long was supposedly a high-level alchemist himself as well. After thinking about it for a bit, he said, "Although I'm not afraid of any problems that this Li Wei may try to cause me, I still don't want to waste my time with him." The unconcerned manner in which Shun Long spoke had truly fooled Yin Xing, who then replied, "Then if Senior doesn't mind, how about you leave the pavilion after obtaining everything that you require?" Shun Long pondered for a bit before nodding his head. "Not a bad idea." "Then let's follow your plan," Shun Long said in that unconcerned but heavy voice of his. Yin Xing wiped the sweat from his forehead as he thought inside. Thank God that Senior is so aloof and doesn't care about fighting with others over minor matters. Otherwise, if I had to mediate over their fight with Senior Li, I wouldn't have enough layers of skin to save myself. What Yin Xing didn't know was that Shun Long was also trying to find a way to avoid Li Wei, or that would end up exposing his identity if they were to actually fight. After all, Li Wei had definitely reached the heaven grade, being a silver grade alchemist, and Shun Long would be helpless in front of him if they were to truly fight. I have to become even stronger. The rate at which I'm progressing isn't enough. People like Li Wei, and even people like Yin Xing, are already far stronger than me. If I want to establish a foothold in the cultivation world, I will need to become even stronger than these people. I will do my best to reach the heaven grade, as only then will I be able to fight with people like Li Wei." Just as Shun Long was about to sort out his thoughts, with his goal of reaching the heaven grade, the triangular-shaped stone sucked in his consciousness, and an insanely strong force repelled everything around Shun Long. The decorations in the room, and even the couch created from the fur of a rank 2 magical beast, were all blown to smithereens, while Yin Xing, who was at the door of the room, was thrown outside like a cannonball. Everything in a radius of 10 meters around Shun Long was repelled, and the heavenly pressure that his body seemed to exude could be felt by everyone in the entire auction hall. Everyone felt like they were about to be pulverized from this terrifying pressure, as they couldn't even breathe properly. Even Li Wei was on his knees inside his private room due to this terrifying pressure. His eyes were full of terror as he looked toward Shun Long's room and thought of the man who he had wanted to take revenge against, that was now exuding such a pressure. Creators. Shun Long could feel that the triangular-shaped stone was releasing a suppressive aura outside his body, but his consciousness was all sucked inside the triangular-shaped stone. This time, he hadn't arrived in the space where he practiced his monarch's hourglass, but had instead been sucked inside a pitch-black space, without the slightest trace of light. Shun Long couldn't see anything around him when a dignified voice that came from inside the darkness asked him, "What do you want?" Shun Long was puzzled as the voice asked him again, "Do you want power?" Shun Long didn't know if it was the triangular-shaped stone that was asking him or if it was someone else, but because the stone had directly merged with his soul, he had always felt as if the stone was part of him, so he replied, "Are you the little stone?" The voice repeated the question, "Do you want power?" Shun Long nodded his head as he answered truthfully, "Yes." "How much power?" The voice asked him again. Shun Long then thought for a bit before replying, "Enough to beat heaven-grade experts at least." For the first time, the voice from the darkness showed some emotion as it laughed and said, "Heaven-grade experts? Then what will you do if you meet someone at an even higher level than a heaven-grade expert?" Shun Long hadn't thought that the voice would ask him such a question, and for the first time, he didn't have an answer in his mind. The voice then asked him, "What is your goal?" Shun Long thought deep and hard for a long time. "What is my goal?" Slowly Shun Long replied, "I want to be free." "What else?" the voice asked. "I want to control my own fate." "What else?" the voice repeated. Shun Long didn't know what to answer, as the voice spoke again. "Search deep inside you. What do you really want?" "I want to live more. I want to experience everything in this world. I don't want to be constrained by others. I want to stand at the top of this world. I want to become the strongest person. I want to be the one in control." Desires poured out of Shun Long's heart while his voice grew louder and louder as he kept listing more and more things. Desires were easy to suppress if you kept them in the dark, but hard to control if you showed them even the tiniest bit of light. Ha 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 ha. Yes, that's it. Desire more, ask for more. Use your own hands, master. You are allowed to stand at the peak of this world this time, as the owner of the Stone of Time. "Master?" Shun Long asked questioningly. The voice grew weaker and weaker. "I will follow you no matter what, as you are my master." In the end, the voice was almost inaudible as the darkness slowly receded. It all condensed at the center of this space into a pitch-black egg. This egg was at the size of a human, and although it was pitch-black, there were various ancient symbols on top of it, as it emanated a berserk and powerful aura. Now that the darkness had receded, Shun Long could see the space around him. It was 30 square meters big, and the only thing on this space aside from the black egg was the soil on the ground. When the darkness was condensed into the pitch-black egg, the aura that burst out from Shun Long's body had startled the entire floating cloud sect before it returned back inside his body. Be it the outer city or the inner city, from the weakest outer disciples to the elders, everyone was alarmed by this burst of powerful aura as they fell to their knees, all of them unable to breathe. In the depths of the inner city, inside a restricted area, there was a luxurious mansion. A man who seemed to be in his early 40s was sitting on his bed when he had sensed the burst of aura from the treasure pavilion as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes looked towards the location of the pavilion in the outer city, and after that horrifying aura was retracted back to its source, the man stood up. "Could it be that some powerful senior has arrived in my outer city?" The man mumbled to himself. This man was the strongest person in the entire floating cloud sect, the sect master Lu Jian. After sensing this aura, he issued a summons to the elders of the sect, ordering all of them to convene at the inner city's main hall. Shun Long's consciousness had been returned to his body before he had time to explore the newfound space in the triangular-shaped stone. However, he clearly remembered that the voice in the darkness had called the little stone Stone of Time, as well as Shun Long, its master. Before Shun Long had time to ponder over things, heavy breathing could be heard from the entire treasure pavilion as people could finally breathe again. Before Shun Long had time to ponder over things, heavy breathing could be heard from the entire treasure pavilion. Everyone could now breathe again as they looked at Shun Long's private room with different emotions in their eyes. There was horror, reverence, awe, excitement, fear, worship, and more, all at the same time. Xing, who had shot like a cannonball outside of the room earlier, was now looking at Shun Long's back with admiration and fanatism. As the loud gasps for air stopped, the entire treasure pavilion was bathed in silence. Nobody dared to utter a word, and most people were drenched in sweat from head to toe by now. Shun Long turned to look at Xing, who's still on the floor outside the room. Then he looked around the room and noticed that everything was destroyed, leaving it completely empty inside. Xing, are you okay? Shun Long asked with a bit of embarrassment in his heavy voice. After all, Xing was a rank 3 bronze grade alchemist, and yet he had ended like that, just by being around Shun Long. Xing waved his hands hurriedly as he stood up and said, "Of course, senior. Thank you for asking." Xing felt flattered that the senior called his name directly. This person was definitely stronger than alchemist Li Wei. The aura he had emitted earlier was definitely not in the heaven grade. As Xing thought of the fact that this senior is probably above the heaven grade, he started trembling with excitement and was even more determined to forge a good relationship with Shun Long as he then asked nervously, Senior, did something happen earlier which caused you to release your aura?" Shun Long understood what Xing was talking about. Of course, that aura didn't belong to Shun Long but to the triangular-shaped stone. However, Shun Long had to give an excuse after destroying the entire room, so he said in his heavy voice, "Earlier, something happened that drew my attention, so I couldn't help but accidentally release my aura, since Shun Long didn't explain explicitly what had happened, and Xing didn't ask for more details about that. If the senior didn't want to explain more, then he wouldn't mindlessly pester him about it. Instead, he switched the topic as he asked Shun Long, "Senior, about the auction. Right. Xing, are there any other private rooms available? If not, this one will do as well, although we may need another couch." "Senior means that you still want to participate in the auction?" "Of course. Isn't that what I came here for?" "Okay, senior, don't worry. I will make all the necessary arrangements." Xing truly made the arrangements he had promised. As just half an incense stick of time later, he took Shun Long to another private room, and this one was even slightly bigger than the last one they were in earlier. He also informed the higher-ups of the treasure pavilion that what happened in the room was an accident, and that the mysterious senior wishes for the auction to keep going. The higher-ups of the pavilion didn't raise any questions, and instead ordered Xing to do his best to forge a close relationship with that person before they called Lan Jingjing and told her that she should continue with the auction. Although the crowd was still terrified by the earlier aura outbreak, Lan Jingjing's exceptional skills as an auctioneer had managed to divert everyone's attention, and people had started bidding again in no time. Meanwhile, in the inner city, the main hall was almost full as the elders of the sect were standing in front of the main seat, where the sect master was sitting on. The elders in the hall were the strongest people in the Floating Cloud sect. Even the weakest person in the room was at the early stages of rank 7 in the heaven grade. "Sect master, what was that aura earlier? Could it be that sect master had a breakthrough?" Yes, that must be it. Who else could release such an aura in the entire Floating Cloud city? Lu Jian motioned with his hand for everyone to be quiet before he said, "That frightening aura didn't come from me. Even if I managed to break through and reach the middle stages of the spirit realm, I still wouldn't be able to unleash such an aura." Then he took a deep breath as he said, "Actually, I called all of you here to ask if any of you has any idea why such a powerful person would suddenly appear in our Floating Cloud sect." The elders were all aghast when they heard Lu Jian's words. Silence permeated the hall until a person with white hair and a white beard said, "Sect master, do you think that this person has come here for the Vermilion Realm?" The person who asked this question was the Grand Elder of the sect, Lan Hong. His status was only below Lu Jian's and above every other elder's. Lu Jian thought about it, but he eventually shook his head as he said, "Unlikely. It is too early for the Vermilion Realm to open anyway. Also, if this senior wanted to enter the Vermilion Realm, I doubt our Floating Cloud sect could assist him in any way. From my estimations, this senior's strength is above the late stages of the spirit realm. Perhaps even." Lu Jian cut off his words and didn't dare speculate any further. Discussions were taking place over this matter, just in the main hall of the inner city. but everywhere in the entire floating cloud city. From the mystifying fragrance pavilion to even the cheapest inns, everyone was discussing about that sudden burst of suppressive aura. Meanwhile, the culprits, Shun Long's eyes were shining brightly at this moment as he heard Lan Jingjing saying, "Our next item for the auction is something that many alchemists need, but can't easily find. Although it's only a rank 2 medicinal herb, it can help you improve your control over the element of fire consuming this fruit. It is precisely the fire spirit fruit. It is the fire spirit fruit. The minimum bid must be at least 5,000 sect points, while every increment must be at least 200 sect points higher than the last bid." Every alchemist sitting in the outer seats had stood up. Even the people inside the private rooms like Shun Long couldn't stay completely calm as they looked with eyes full of fervor towards the fire spirit fruit on the main stage. The only exception was Li Wei, who looked down from his private room towards those people with a mocking look in his eyes as he thought, "Look at those bumpkins getting so excited over a single fire spirit fruit. Our Alchemists Guild has at least 5 of those fruits." The bidding immediately started as people called their bids one after the other. 5,500 sect points, 6,000, 7,000, 7,500. The price didn't stop increasing until it reached the 10,000 sect points. Is there anyone who is willing to offer a higher price? If not, this fire spirit fruit will go to this honorable guest over here, Lan Jingjing said as she pointed towards a guest at the side of the outer seats who had bid 10,000 sect points for the fire spirit fruit. In reality, although the fire spirit fruit was rare, 10,000 sect points had already exceeded its value, but this was the reality of the auctions in the cultivation world. When you needed something, you would pay as much as you had to in order to obtain it. 20,000 points, Shun Long called from inside the private room in a placid voice. The people inside the auction hall who heard Shun Long's voice and remembered the terrifying aura he had emitted earlier all started to shudder. The alchemist in the outer seats who had bid 10,000 sect points earlier now felt dispirited. He had a bit more than 13,000 sect points, and he was confident that he could obtain the fire spirit fruit, but this senior had to ruin everything. Even Yinxing couldn't help asking, "Senior, are you certain that you wish to spend 20,000 sect points for a rank 2 fire spirit fruit?" 20,000 sect points was an astronomical price to pay for a rank 2 herb. However, Shun Long didn't mind that. After selling the chi barrier-breaking pills earlier, his sect points were now more than 50,000. Shun Long just nodded his head at Yinxing's question. In the auction hall, Lan Jingjing was the first to recover as she said, "If there is no higher offer, then this fire spirit fruit will go to the senior in private room number 2. Since no one put forth a higher offer than Shun Long, the staff of the treasure pavilion sent someone to deliver the fire spirit fruit in his private room. A disciple in yellow robes arrived carrying a small wooden box with the fire spirit fruit inside. Shun Long paid the 20,000 sect points, and after receiving the box, he opened it and saw a red fruit the size of an adult's fist, with red lines all over its surface. Shun Long then closed the box and put it inside his robes along with the water element grass. After the disciple left the room, Shun Long handed Yinxing a paper as he said, "Although this recipe isn't as good as my original chi barrier-breaking pill recipe, the pills created from this will still have a 40% chance of allowing a peak rank 6 chi condensation cultivator to reach the middle stages, or rank 7. Yinxing was overjoyed when he heard Shun Long's words and held the recipe near his chest as he bowed repeatedly while thanking Shun Long. Yinxing had helped Shun Long a lot while he was in the treasure pavilion, and as an alchemist, Shun Long knew what Yinxing desired the most. Although this recipe was nothing in Shun Long's eyes, to Yinxing it was a priceless treasure that could help him improve his abilities as an alchemist even further. Shun Long then decided to leave the treasure pavilion, as he had no more interest in the auction. He had already learned from Yinxing what the rest of the items in the auction were going to be, and the only interesting thing left was a golden lion cub. However, Yinxing's estimation was that the cub would be sold for at least 70,000 sect points. An adult golden lion was a rank 3 beast that could fight against experts at the late stages of the heaven grade. Anyone having such a mount would be near invincible in the floating clouds sect. Shun Long walked around the city until he found a secluded corner to remove his black robes, before stealthily returning to the inn. After paying the inn owner another 4 sect points for the next month, Shun Long shut himself in his room. He looked at the water element grass and the fire spirit fruit in his hands, as well as the rest of the ingredients that he had previously purchased from the treasure pavilion, and after taking a deep breath he said, "Finally, I now have everything needed to refine the internal destruction pill." All 5 ingredients needed for the internal destruction pill were all neatly arranged on the ground. However, Shun Long didn't immediately start the refining process, but instead aimed to bring his mental state in peak condition first. This was the first time that he was going to refine a rank 2 pill, and it was the internal destruction pill at that. After studying Lu Wen's alchemy books and the theories that were written inside, as well as all the recipes for the rank 2 pills, Shun Long felt confident that he could refine every pill that was categorized as a bronze grade pill. However, he only had this one batch of ingredients, and in case he failed, he wouldn't get another chance, so bringing himself in optimal condition was necessary before starting the refinement. Shun Long used his spiritual strength to inspect the 5 medicinal herbs that were in front of him when suddenly, the water element grass disappeared from the ground. Shun Long was stunned as he abruptly stood up, but the water element grass had vanished from the room. He sent his spiritual strength around the room, but he found nothing when he suddenly sensed something in his spiritual space. He sent his spiritual strength inside the triangular-shaped stone, and he was shocked by what he saw inside. The water element grass had grown by almost 1/3 of its original size as it was buried in the ground inside the triangular-shaped stone space. Shun Long could feel his chi depleting, but he didn't even react as he looked stupefied, staring blankly at the water element grass in the ground. The black egg was also there, but were no visible changes around it. Different possibilities flashed through Shun Long's mind as he thought, "Can I store medicinal herbs in this space? Do they grow faster here? Is that why the flow of time feels to be flowing faster in that patch of soil that the water element grass has buried itself at?" Shun Long ignored his chi that was being rapidly depleted as he used his spiritual strength on the fire spirit fruit. Originally, there was no reaction, but as Shun Long willed for it to be transferred inside the spiritual space of the little stone, the fire spirit fruit vanished as it appeared near the water element grass. Shun Long removed a seed from the fire spirit fruit, and after burying it near the water element grass, he felt his chi being sapped at an alarming rate. Half an hour later, Shun Long forcibly stopped his chi from being transferred towards the soil as his body was almost emptied out, but the effects of the soil were shocking. There was a small sapling at the place where he had buried the fire spirit fruit seed earlier, while the water element grass had already doubled in size. Shun Long wanted to try the same with the white root Ganoderma and the blood lotus, but his body was already out of chi. Shun Long was thrilled as this discovery solved his 2 biggest problems at the same time, while also providing an even more extraordinary benefit. Although the space inside the little stone isn't that big, it's more than enough for me to store what I need here. Wait, I guess I should call the little stone of time from now on. That's what that voice had called it as well. Shun Long pondered for a bit more as he said to himself, almost as if he was trying to verify his own finds. It seems like I have to exchange my chi for the ingredients to mature faster inside this space, but this way I can ensure that I won't really lack the ingredients for the internal destruction pill. In the future, I can also duplicate any rare medicinal herb I find, and then sell them to make a killing. As Shun Long was having these thoughts, a wide smile was hanging on his face. Although he couldn't really duplicate the rank 3 black-tongued python's poison in the soil as it wasn't a medicinal herb, he could always buy it again from the treasure pavilion if he needed it. Soon, 15 days passed like that, and from the constant depleting and replenishing of his chi, Shun Long had already managed to reach the early rank 8 in chi condensation. He already had a little tree of fire spirit fruits with 3 fruits ready to be plucked. The water element grass had reached 3 times its original size, and the same went for the white root Ganoderma and the blood lotus. Even if he failed the refinement process, Shun Long would only need the black-tongued python's poison since he already had everything else inside the spiritual space now. After sitting on the floor and warming up his cauldron, he started adding in the medicinal herbs. Refining the internal destruction pill was harder than what Shun Long had originally estimated. The whole refinement process took more than an hour to complete, and in the end, Shun Long was lying on the floor, drenched in sweat while inside his cauldron was one crimson-red medicinal pill. Shun Long didn't even meditate. He just gasped for breath for a while due to his overdrawn qi and spiritual strength. The internal destruction pill had to be consumed within an hour after it was concocted, so Shun Long didn't have much time to rest. After sitting up and observing the pill in his hands, he noticed that there were faint white lines on its surface. Thankfully, I managed to refine a high-grade pill. Even pills had their own ranks, from low-grade to middle-grade and high-grade. All the special qi barrier-breaking pills that Shun Long had refined and sold to the treasure pavilion were between low and middle grade. The reason for that was because Shun Long had only just started as an alchemist, so his aim was to complete the refinement process. However, this time was different. The internal destruction pill could only be consumed once, and the higher the grade of the pill, the better the results would be. Without hesitation, Shun Long swallowed the pill as he started circulating the method of the monarch's eternal body. As the pill dissolved inside Shun Long's mouth, the energy inside it followed the circulation method of the monarch's eternal body as it flowed from Shun Long's meridians to every nook and cranny inside his body. Shun Long roared like a beast in pain. Even if he wanted to stop the circulation of the body refinement at this point, he wouldn't be able to, as the energy had already started to wash every part of his body, bringing along unbearable pain with it. Shun Long had grown much more resistant to pain after his soul had been forcefully enlarged by the Golden Book in the past. However, the pain he felt now wasn't much lower than that. The internal destruction pill had started with his blood as it slowly burned it, while with the help of the monarch's eternal body that was circulating inside him, the healing properties of the pill were slowly replenishing the blood that he was burning, refining it again and again, making it even purer and stronger. After his blood, all of his internal organs as well as his meridians followed, as they were all destroyed and then recreated, from his liver to his heart and even his brain and eyes, they were all turned into a pool of blood before being reformed. The only reason that Shun Long was still alive was thanks to the monarch's eternal body that was circulating inside his body, reforming his destroyed organs. After that, his bones followed, with his skin coming in last. Everything inside and outside Shun Long's body had turned into blood before being slowly reformed by the monarch's eternal body. The pain and suffering that he was feeling throughout this process was enough to leave even the most resilient men wanting to die. This whole process took nearly a month of constant destruction and creation. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Shun Long was a different man now after consuming the internal destruction pill. After this 1 month, his body had been completely reformed. His external appearance could have been considered handsome before refining his body, but now, aside from becoming even more handsome, his body also naturally emitted a domineering aura. He could feel that he was bursting with energy inside, as every part of him was more than 100 times stronger than before. But the most miraculous thing was that he could now sense the space around his body if he willed it. He raised his right hand in the air as he tried to touch the space around him. He could sense a matter that was like water, and yet not water, something non-existent and yet tangible at the same time. It was almost as if the space around him was hugging his body, while it didn't hinder his movements at all. Shun Long tried cutting through space with his hand, and a small space tear appeared in front of him. After deliberating for a while, his eyes focused as he slowly put his hand inside it. His hand had disappeared in the space tear, as it appeared through another tear in space 2 meters away from his original position. Shun Long tried to move the fingers in his hand, and although the hand was 2 meters away from him, it still moved exactly as Shun Long willed it to. As he retracted his hand from the space tear, the tear then closed. Does this mean that I can now move through space? Shun Long wanted to test some more of his theories when suddenly his sect-identifying jade started glowing. The voice of an old man appeared from the jade as it said, All new disciples that have entered the sect in the past year are to gather in front of the city gates within 1 hour. Shun Long's eyes brightened as he thought. Could it be for the outer sect examination? Calculating the time that Shun Long had spent in seclusion refining his body, it should be the time for the outer sect examination to begin. After gathering all his important belongings and putting them inside the Stone of Time, Shun Long walked towards the city gates. Although the city gates weren't that far from the inn he was staying, it still took Shun Long 20 minutes to arrive there. On the way, he saw many disciples heading towards the same direction, all of them seeming perplexed on why the sect had summoned them. By the time he arrived, there was already a huge crowd waiting in front of the gates. After 40 minutes, the crowd gathered had definitely numbered more than 50,000 disciples when 3 sect elders in black robes appeared in front of everyone. The elder in the lead was white-haired, with a white beard, and as the buzzing crowd quietened as they saw him, he started speaking. "My name is Lan Hong, and I am the Grand Elder of our Floating Clouds sect. I am sure that many of you are curious as to why the sect suddenly summoned you all. I will explain everything only once, so pay close attention. Every 3 years, our Floating Clouds sect tempers our newly accepted disciples in the Demonic Mountain region to the west of our Floating Cloud city. In the Demonic Mountain region, you disciples will have to compete not just between yourselves, but you will also have to fight against the magical beasts that live there if you want to stay alive. In your sect identifying jades, each of you will be given a special point, which is completely different from your sect points. You can directly rob this special point from others if you acquire their sect-identifying jade. Your aim in the Demonic Mountain region will be to survive, while gathering the special survival points that the other disciples here have. The Demonic Mountain region is a place where you can become stronger and find fortuitous opportunities, but you can also die there. You can call the sect unfair or cruel if you want, but nothing will change. You are all cultivators, and your aim should be to become stronger instead of staying locked up inside the sect. The sect, too, has no need for a bunch of weaklings in the Qi condensation realm who are content with their lives inside the city. As the Grand Elder finished this sentence, his voice had turned stern as he then continued. However, this year's outer sect examinations will be different compared to the previous years. This time you will also have to compete against disciples from other sects inside the Demonic Mountain region. Namely, it will be 3 sects at the same size as our Floating Cloud sect, the Flying Sword sect, the Roaring Wind Pavilion, as well as the Iron Hardened School. Their disciples will also try to take your special survival points, and you should also do the same. Remember that you may die at any moment inside the Demonic Mountain region, be it from another cultivator or from a magic beast, so if you want to stay alive you have to be ruthless. Death lurks everywhere in the Demonic Mountain region, and you only have 2 options. Become ruthless or die. Elder Zhu will give each of you your survival points. As the Grand Elder, Lan Hong, finished speaking, he pointed towards the bald Elder Zhu on the side. After every disciple had a special survival point added to their sect-identifying jade, Lan Hong took the lead as he headed outside of the city towards the west before shouting in a loud voice. "All disciples are to follow after me." Most of the disciples were feeling downcast as they followed behind Lan Hong. Why do we have to risk our lives all of a sudden for no reason? I agree. Nobody informed us about this beforehand, or I may not have joined the Floating Cloud sect. The sect is so cruel. They didn't even ask for our permission before ordering us to participate. Shun Long heard all the hushed whispers of the terrified disciples around him, and he just chuckled. After his conversation with the voice in the darkness inside the Stone of Time, his mental state had already changed drastically from before. He was now going to grasp every single opportunity he could to become stronger. These 3 months inside the sect where he did nothing other than cultivating had already felt so stifling to him, so this chance to leave the sect was a good opportunity, albeit a dangerous one. This will be a great opportunity to test my monarch's eternal body, he thought as he kept following the group headed towards the Demonic Mountain region. Lan Hong knew what the disciples were feeling, yet he didn't pay much attention to them as he said, "Elder Lu will explain the rewards that the sect will give you, depending on your results." This was the same Elder Lu that had brought Shun Long from the Sky Fortune Kingdom to the Floating Cloud sect, Elder Lu Cheng. Following behind the Grand Elder Lu Cheng didn't even turn around as he started speaking with his back facing the disciples. You will all be able to obtain different rewards from the sect depending on your results. Those of you that manage to keep just one survival point by the end of the exam will be able to obtain 10 sect points, while those of you that collect 10 survival points will get 100 sect points. The person ranked in the 100th position will get 1,000 sect points, while for every position above that you will get an extra 100 sect points. Aside from that, there will be special rewards for the top 10 and the top 3 respectively. The top 10 will all obtain weapons crafted by silver grade formation masters, while the top 3 will each obtain a spatial ring. As Elder Lu finished speaking, all the disciples were shocked. The rewards this year were definitely much better than the previous years. Elder, what about the first place then? Elder, what about the first place then? In the floating cloud sect, where even the lodging wasn't free for those disciples, and they had to work hard in the sect mines every month just for 50 sect points, an opportunity to earn 1,000 sect points at once was worth risking their lives over. However, the prospect of a spatial ring was even more enticing than that. Of course, these people knew how small their chances were to get into the top 3 of the sect examination. In reality, only those disciples that were at the peak of rank 3 in Earth grade had a chance to enter the top 3. The disciple who had spoken just now was short with red hair. His name was Guan Hong, and he was a peak rank 3 Earth grade disciple. Oh! Lu Cheng stopped walking as he exclaimed in a surprised manner. He turned around to look at Guan Hong, and after noticing that he was at the peak of rank 3 in Earth grade, he nodded his head as he said, "The first place will additionally get 100 spirit stones from the sect, but that's not all. The person who gathers the most survival points out of every other disciple between the 4 sects will also get a blood vermilion fruit." Although most disciples were perplexed, Shun Long's eyes shone brightly when he heard of the blood vermilion fruit. If I can get my hands on it, my strength will definitely advance by leaps and bounds, he thought. Lu Cheng saw that most disciples hadn't even heard of the blood vermilion fruit, and he snorted as he explained. The blood vermilion fruit can be directly consumed and allow a disciple at the peak of rank 3 in the Earth grade to directly advance to the early rank 4. To Shun Long, though, the blood vermilion fruit was even more attractive than that, as he could refine it into a pill. After consuming it, his strength would directly soar. Everyone in the group was excited as they walked toward the demonic mountain region. The weaker disciples all hoped to enter the top 100, while the stronger disciples like Guan Hong, who were at the peak of rank 3 in Earth grade, were all dreaming of taking first place. Their group traveled for 7 days until they arrived at the demonic mountain region. Shun Long was shocked when he saw how vast the region was. There were mountains and trees as far as the eye could see. The floating cloud sect was the second group to arrive. In front of them was another huge group that wasn't any smaller than their own. Their disciples were all dressed in white robes, and they were all carrying swords on their backs. A pair of elders approached the floating cloud sect's group, and the oldest one of them spoke. "Haha, Lan Hong, I didn't expect that you would be the one to lead your fledglings all the way from the floating cloud city." This person was the grand elder of the flying sword sect, Huizhong. Huizhong, it seems that your flying sword sect also takes this sect examination quite seriously. Otherwise, with how old you are, you wouldn't have stepped a foot outside your sect. Are you any younger than me, Lan Hong? Ha ha ha, it's okay. I won't hold any grudges against you this time. Let me introduce someone to you. This is my grandson, Hui Ming. As soon as Huizhong finished speaking, a young man with sharp defined features and a hooked nose appeared from the flying sword sect's group. The man had a golden sword strapped on his back, and anyone who looked at his pair of eyes would suddenly sense a feeling of danger coming from this person. Lan Hong's eyes shone brightly as he saw the young man who now stood next to Huizhong, and he exclaimed in a loud voice full of bewilderment, "How is it possible?" Huizhong smiled brightly as he said, "Did you notice already? It's precisely what you think. Minger's talent for the sword is even higher than my own. He has already touched upon sword chi, while he is only at the peak of rank 2 in the Earth grade. I am not afraid to say that even though his cultivation is low, he has the highest chance among everyone here to obtain the first place in this survival examination." Lan Hong couldn't refute Huizhong's words, as his floating cloud sect didn't have anyone at the same level as Hui Ming. Usually, sword cultivators would only be able to touch upon sword qi when they reached the late stages of the earth grade. Old man Huizhong, I'm afraid that your grandson won't have that chance. As a manly voice was heard from the distance, two big groups could be seen coming towards them. Two big groups had appeared in the distance, and each of them wasn't any smaller than the floating cloud sects. The people leading them were a beautiful woman with long black hair and a 2 meters, 6.6 feet, tall, robust middle-aged man with a bald, shaved head. Obviously, the person who spoke just now was that middle-aged man. Sect Master De Chao. Do you think there is anyone in your iron-hardened sect that can defeat my grandson in the same level of cultivation? Why don't you bring that person out and have them compete with Huiming then? Hehehehe, that's fine by me. De Chong, just go and beat that kid up until his grandfather can't recognize him anymore. As Sect Master De Chao finished speaking, a tall and robust young man that largely resembled De Chao walked from behind him. This young man was wearing brown robes and was almost as tall as De Chao himself, while his hands and feet were even bigger than his. Just as the situation was taking a turn for the worse, the beautiful woman who had kept quiet so far said in a sweet voice, I'm sure that everyone here is eagerly waiting for this year's examination to start. After all, what the sect examination tests isn't just brute physical strength, but a disciple's ability to plan ahead as well as their survival instincts. Since everyone is gathered then, how about starting the sect examination now? The beautiful woman turned her look towards Grand Elder Lan Hong, who in turn nodded and said, Since Vice Pavilion Master Li Huiyan and Sect Master De Chao have also arrived, we should all start with the sect examination. If you insist on fighting now, then your Flying Sword sect and your Iron-Hardened sect can just stay behind and wait for the results. Both De Chao and Huizhong snorted, but they knew that the important thing in hand was to test their disciples this time, so everyone gathered their groups in front of the demonic mountain region's entrance. Lan Hong went in front of the floating cloud sects group and said, You will all spend the next month inside the demonic mountain region. When the time is up, your sect-identifying jades will light up as they will point your way towards my location. Until then, do your best to gather as many survival points as possible, and try to stay alive too. That is all. As Lan Hong finished speaking, so did the other three leaders of their respective groups, as the groups started heading inside the demonic mountain region. Shun Long was feeling excited but also nervous at the same time. After all, it was the first time that he would be participating in something like this. This was going to be a true survival test. Shun Long started heading inside the demonic mountain region along with the other disciples, but as if in tacit agreement, no one fought as they were entering inside. Everyone is probably waiting for someone else to start a fight, since the first person who starts fighting here would be preyed upon by the others in the end. As he was heading deeper inside the demonic mountain region, Shun Long saw that the number of disciples around him had started to lessen. Just as he was about to find a good spot on the trees around him, he felt a spiritual fluctuation from the black egg in his spiritual space. Suddenly, all the qi around the area he was in had started rushing towards his body, more precisely, towards the stone of time where the black egg was in. This wasn't just the qi that was in direct proximity around Shun Long, but the qi inside the earth as well as in the air around him. All of it was now towards him. Shun Long started running deeper inside the demonic mountain region as the black egg absorbed more and more qi. His speed had already reached such a terrifying level after entering the first level of the monarch's eternal body that he was far faster than any peak rank 3 earth grade cultivator. Suddenly, as Shun Long was running deeper inside, a 3 meters 9 feet long snake jumped at him from the top of a tree. The beast could feel the rich qi around Shun Long, and it madly wanted to absorb it all for itself. Shun Long immediately recognized this magic beast. A rank 2 dark venom snake. Shun Long tried to dodge to the side, but the snake coiled itself around his waist with lightning speed. Just as the dark venom snake tried to plunge its fangs on Shun Long's chest, he instantly activated the monarch's hourglass and gathered all of his strength and qi in his right hand as he chopped towards its weakest spot, the snake's neck. Shun Long could feel his hands being bathed in a hot liquid as the snake's head was severed and green blood dyed his arms and robes. Although the dark venom snake was a rank 2 magical beast, It was only comparable to an early-stage Earth-grade cultivator. This was the first time that Shun Long had killed something, and yet, he couldn't stop running as beast roars could be heard from every direction. He could already feel more and more magical beasts chasing him down from all sides. The disciples that were previously around him had all run as far away as they could when they saw the horde of magical beasts that was now chasing Shun Long. The most terrifying thing was that there were even some peak rank 2 magical beasts. A peak rank 2 magical beast was at the very least as strong as a peak rank 9 Earth-grade cultivator, yet these beasts were now chasing Shun Long in a mad frenzy almost, as if he was some kind of extraordinary delicacy. Thankfully, Shun Long's body had been enhanced after having consumed the internal destruction pill and entered the first level of the monarch's eternal body. Nevertheless, the beasts launched plenty of attacks, and Shun Long was eventually forced to use the monarch's domain. Although his cultivation had already advanced to the early rank 8, in the end, he was just a chi condensation novice, and he couldn't keep the monarch's domain active for more than 100 breaths of time. As if sensing the monarch's domain, the black egg started vibrating even more intensely while its size was rapidly enlarging. After 49 breaths of time had passed since Shun Long had activated the monarch's domain, the egg that had reached 3 meters, 10 feet, in height by now, finally cracked from the top as a black being slowly emerged from it. As the black egg cracked, a 3 meters, 10 feet, tall creature could be seen emerging from it. As the creature's eyes opened, an aura of absolute tyranny burst from it, suppressing everything around Shun Long. Every magic beast in a radius of 3 miles around him was now on its knees prostrating towards the source of this aura. Shun Long could finally catch his breath as he hurriedly sent his spiritual strength inside the Stone of Time. What? His mind and thoughts couldn't believe that what he was seeing was real. A black dragon. Dragons really existed, and one of them was inside the Stone of Time. The dragon was black from its head to its talons. The only exception was a pair of bright blue eyes that were as deep as the ocean and were glowing with a shining azure light. The dragon was rapidly inhaling from its nostrils, absorbing every single bit of chi that was remaining around it. It suddenly spread its massive wings open and roared from inside the Stone of Time. This roar carried itself towards Shun Long's spiritual space and then continued outside of his body. As the beasts prostrating around Shun Long heard this roar, they all fainted on the spot. It didn't matter if they were rank 1 magic beasts or even peak rank 2, they had all fainted without exception. The dragon then looked at the imaginary Shun Long that had appeared inside the Stone of Time space. His bright blue eyes that exuded absolute tyranny a moment ago had suddenly turned gentle as the dragon looked at Shun Long and lowered his head in front of him before calling out, "Master." The black dragon didn't open his mouth to speak. Instead, his voice had directly sounded inside Shun Long's head. Shun Long looked at the dragon perplexed, and unknowingly, he had put his right hand on the huge head that was lowered in front of him. He then opened his mouth to ask, "Are you the voice that was speaking to me from the darkness?" The dragon nodded his head. "Then, am I your master because the Stone of Time has merged with me? What is this stone? Since you called it the Stone of Time, then you must definitely know about it." The dragon shook his head at Shun Long's question as his answer shook Shun Long to his core. "Master, you are not my master because you possess the Stone of Time. You have been my master long before you obtained the Stone of Time." Shun Long didn't seem to understand what this black dragon tried to say. Wasn't he inside the Stone of Time? How could the previous Shun Long, or the rock from Earth, to have ever met with any dragons in the past? The black dragon seemed to be able to see through Shun Long's puzzlement as he answered with a question of his own. "Master, why do you think that the Stone of Time chose you?" "Right. Why did the Stone of Time choose me?" Shun Long seemed to be stumped as he couldn't find an answer to this question. Then he turned his bright eyes towards the black dragon as he asked, "Does that mean that you know the answer?" "Of course. Master, there is always a reason for everything that happens. Let me start from the beginning." The dragon then sat down on the space inside the Stone of Time and coiled his long head around Shun Long before starting to explain through another telepathic message. "A long time ago, I was born in a place called the Sky-Mending World. The birth of any dragon, no matter how weak or strong, is enough to startle countless superpowers in the universe. Usually, when someone from our dragon race is born, there will always be some seniors from our race to protect us. However, my circumstances were different, and in the end, I had to flee the Sky-Mending World while still a newborn, as I ended up being chased by a huge group of people. The dragon spoke with a hint of melancholy, as well as grief in his voice as he continued. Although many people want to enslave a dragon, there are even more who want to kill one. A dragon's body is a priceless treasure. The horns, the scales, the claws, everything, even the tongue of a dragon would be a priceless treasure that many superpowers would kill to obtain. Then the dragon's eyes shone as he said in a proud voice with a big smile hanging on his face. That was when I and Master met each other for the first time. Shun Long was speechless. Why is he so sure that I've met him before? And yet, he didn't interrupt the dragon, who was explaining more about his past, as this story would probably include parts about the Stone of Time, as well as help Shun Long understand more about this dragon. Although we dragons are born with exceptionally strong bodies and are very intelligent from the start, I couldn't escape the pursuit of all those people. That was when I happened to run into Master just outside the heaven-trampling city. Back then, Master saw my scarred body while I was still a newborn and took pity in me as he came to my aid. Since Master was already the lord of the heaven-trampling city, and the heaven-trampling legion followed Master, aside from a few superpowers, not many would dare to antagonize you. However, there were still two exceptionally strong people who were willing to offend Master in order to get their hands on me in the end. They brought their armies in front of heaven-trampling city and demanded Master to hand me over. That was when the Black Dragon smirked as he continued. But how could it be possible that they didn't know about Master's temper? Master was already a renowned powerhouse back then and would never suck to threats or forceful behavior. Their armies clashed in a cataclysmic battle with the heaven-trampling legion, and in the end Master personally killed both of their leaders. Shun Long didn't ask anything as the Black Dragon continued explaining. Although dragons don't submit to humans, as a newborn with no one else to rely on, Master became my only family. That was when I first decided to follow Master. Master helped me grow, and after almost 1,000 years of cultivation and the continuous consumption of mountains of pills and natural treasures, I had finally reached a level where I was just slightly weaker than Master. That was when Master decided for us to go to the Dragon Realm and find out more about my origins. After all, it didn't make sense for a dragon to be born alone, outside of the Dragon Realm, and with no seniors to protect him. Then the Black Dragon's eyes turned chilly as an aura of murder radiated from his body that made even the surrounding space to tremble. However, that was when we met him. The Black Dragon then stopped speaking as his body was now trembling from rage, his eyes having turned hazy with a hint of bloodlust as he remembered those scenes. Who are you talking about? Seeing that the Black Dragon wasn't speaking anymore, Shun Long couldn't hold in his curiosity and decided to ask. As the Black Dragon heard Shun Long's voice, his hazy and bloodshot eyes became clear again as he answered. The person who called himself my father. One of the 9 emperors of the Dragon Realm, Long Tianyu. As soon as we met him, he tried to kill me without any hesitation or reason, and he and Master then ended up fighting for 7 full days and nights. Since no winner could be determined in the end, Long Tianyu and Master stopped fighting. However, before he left, Long Tianyu looked at Master and spat out, "I will only warn you once. You should look at your own business, or your end will be a miserable one. The Dragon Realm's matters are not something that you should meddle into." Master then replied without any hesitation, "This is my business. As for my end, someone like you shouldn't worry about it. Although you may be strong, don't delude yourself thinking that you are strong enough to threaten me. After that you brought me away as we left the Dragon Realm. Since then, I followed behind Master as we traveled the world and explored many different ruins until one day we entered a place called the Ruins of the Universe. In there, we nearly died before Master found the Stone of Time." Are you sure that the person back then had something to do with me? Also, what exactly is the Stone of Time? The black dragon resolutely nodded his head at Shun Long's question before saying, "Master, you will understand everything as soon as I finish explaining things." Shun Long nodded and let the dragon continue speaking. The Stone of Time is one of the supreme treasures of the universe. Nobody knows exactly what it is, but it is said that inside it lies the secret to become a god. Shun Long couldn't resist asking, "Do gods really exist then?" The black dragon shook his head as he said, "I don't know, Master. However, it was said that inside the Stone of Time lies the secret for a person to ascend to godhood. There are other rumors as well, claiming that the Stone of Time is the key to enter another world. Nobody knows if they are true or not, but one thing is for sure. The Stone of Time is truly a mysterious and supreme treasure. There are always numerous people exploring the ruins of the universe at all times, and people happen to see that Master obtained a peerless treasure before we could leave the ruins. In their greed, many powerhouses banded together to attack Master, and in the end our only choice was to flee. As the Stone of Time merged with Master and became a part of your soul, the situation back then had reached a point where almost 1/10 of all the powerhouses in the universe were chasing us. However, as Master's soul was fusing with his Stone of Time, your strength was also rapidly increasing. And yet, in the end, an old monster that was in seclusion heard about Master finding a priceless treasure and joined in on the chase. Although Master could probably fight him off one-on-one, we couldn't win against so many enemies. As we were cornered then, Master took a huge gamble. Activating the Stone of Time, Master placed me inside this space, before you also sealed part of your memories inside the stone. These memories then became a golden book. A third of Master's soul had also been sealed inside that. After Master sealed me and the golden book inside the Stone of Time, Master also split the remaining 2/3 of your soul in 2 parts. After that, Master detonated his body as well as his remaining cultivation, while sending the 3 parts of your soul in different directions. The black dragon's eyes were now glistening with tears as he remembered that scene. There was a huge explosion as the enemies around them had turned to dust. Shun Long's eyes widened as he connected the rest of the dots. If what the black dragon had said was all true, then nothing in his life would happen randomly. He died on Earth, almost at the same time as the other part of his soul died in the mortal world. The 2 parts of his soul merged, and the third and last one that was inside the Stone of Time also found him and merged with him. Shun Long couldn't believe what the black dragon was saying, and yet deep inside he knew that it was most likely the truth. After all, why else would the Stone of Time merge with him out of nowhere? But the most important reason that made Shun Long completely trust the black dragon was that he could sense that the dragon was connected to him. Shun Long took a deep breath as he asked, "Assuming that everything you said so far is the truth, why did you ask me if I wanted power the first time you met me? Why did you ask me what my goal was? And why can I sense your emotions?" The black dragon answered proudly, "Master, have you felt your personality slightly changing lately? That's because all 3 parts of your soul have once again become one. Although back then, you split your soul into 3 parts and reincarnated, your desires were all hidden deep inside you even after your soul fused back together. In other words, you hadn't yet woken up. That was the only way I could stimulate your soul's desires and help you wake up. As for the reason why Master can sense my emotions, as I am soul-bound to Master, we can both exchange messages with our minds. However, Master isn't strong enough yet, and you have to wait until you reach at least the spirit realm before using your soul to directly transmit telepathic messages." Spirit realm? Is that the realm above the heaven grade? The black dragon nodded. "Also, what do you mean by soul-bound?" "It means that my soul is bound to yours, Master. In order for my body to enter the Stone of Time, my soul had to be connected to Master's, or the Stone of Time would have rejected me otherwise, and I would have died back then. Master, you are my only family, and I will make sure to protect you. It's just..." The dragon seemed troubled by something, and Shun Long could obviously feel it. It's just that I had to restart my cultivation from the start, so I am extremely weak right now." Shun Long was a bit disappointed when he heard that the black dragon was weak. Since he just started cultivating, he couldn't be any stronger than himself, right? Probably around the middle or the late stages of qi condensation. However, he wasn't dejected at all. Instead, Shun Long had a mysterious feeling of intimacy towards this dragon, and he could also sense the familial affection that the dragon felt for him. Shun Long then smiled as he petted the dragon's head and asked, "Right? What should I call you?" "Master, you have always called me Little Black," the dragon answered enthusiastically. "Fine then, I'll continue calling you that." Shun Long nodded before falling deep in thoughts. Little Black should be telling the truth, both based on the feeling I got from his soul when he was speaking earlier, as well as the fact that everything makes sense now that I know the story behind my past. Although I'm not really interested in becoming a god right now, I will still need to visit those ruins of the universe in the future if I want to find out more about the origins of the Stone of Time. Since it has merged with my soul, and it doesn't seem to have its own consciousness, I doubt it's anything harmful, but I still have to investigate. I also need to become stronger to keep both myself and my parents safe. If it's possible, I should also try to help Little Black to find out more about himself in the future. It isn't logical for his father to try to kill him as soon as he stepped foot in that place called the Dragon Realm. Right now, however, I'm too weak that I can't even leave the Floating Cloud sect. For now, I should focus on the outer sect examination. As Shun Long sorted his thoughts, he said, "Little Black, for now it's better for you to recuperate and become stronger. The outside is dangerous, and even I don't have absolute certainty of staying safe." The Black Dragon. Little Black looked at Shun Long in a weird manner as he said, "Master, the outside is perfectly safe. As far as I can sense at least, there is nothing within 30 miles from your current location that can even match up to me, let alone posing a threat." Shun Long hesitated a bit before asking, "Little Black, what is your current strength right now?" Little Black thought seriously for a while before answering, "Right now I'm extremely weak, much weaker than when I was born the first time, as the qi I could absorb back then couldn't be compared to the thin qi in this place. If I have to put it in magical beast standards, then I'm just a rank 3 magical beast." Shun Long sucked in a deep breath as he heard this, but the shock wasn't over yet. "Despite my low cultivation though, I should be able to easily fight against a spirit realm cultivator, who is in the middle stages." Shun Long was left speechless now. Not only could Little Black send his spiritual strength and scan 30 miles around his body, but he was also a powerhouse who could fight against middle-stage spirit realm cultivators. Shun Long suppressed a shock as he then asked, "Can you sense any secluded place anywhere near my current location?" Little Black nodded his head as he answered, "About 7 miles towards the east, there is a small lake with a rank 3 double-headed fish hiding inside. There is no magic beast or human anywhere near the lake." Shun Long then followed Little Black's directions and quickly reached the small lake. "Little Black, take care of the double-headed fish then. Also, use your spiritual strength to keep watch around the lake. If anyone comes close, whether a human or a magic beast, let me know." "Understood, Master," Little Black responded as he flew out from Shun Long's body and directly headed towards the lake. Little Black stretched his pitch-black wings as the majestic form of a dragon could be seen diving inside the lake, sending a huge current of water up in the sky. The dragon looked just as agile in the water as he looked in the air. The double-headed fish watched in horror as Little Black approached it, and yet in front of a dragon, it couldn't move at all. The battle had no suspense as Little Black used his sharp talons to instantly tear the fish in half. A shiny blue core fell out from the beast's body as Little Black grabbed it with its talons and delivered it to Shun Long. Shun Long looked at the rank 3 beast's core in his hand excitedly as he put it inside his spiritual space. Then he took a deep breath as he thought, "I didn't have the time earlier, but now it's finally time to test the first stage of the monarch's eternal body." With Little Black keeping watch, Shun Long had nothing to worry about as he stood in front of the lake and decided to test the monarch's eternal body's might. He had already found out earlier that his speed was simply incomparable to the past. He was outrunning even rank 2 magical beasts at this point. However, what other change had occurred aside from his speed and his external appearance? Shun Long clenched his right fist tightly as he punched in front of him, and an air current traveled through the lake, creating a disturbance in the water's surface. Little Black's eyes shone as he saw this, and he thought inwardly. Master seems to be at the peak of the first stage in body refinement, and yet his punch can rival a full-out blow of an early second-stage body cultivator. After throwing that punch, Shun Long stood still and closed his eyes as he stood in front of the lake. Without opening them, he raised his left hand as he threw a downward chop in the air, and the space in the area was suddenly torn. This chop was much stronger than the one he had used back in his room in the floating cloud city. The tear in space was so large that a human could easily fit inside it, but 1/10 of Shun Long's physical energy was sapped to create this. Having experienced this once already, Shun Long didn't put his hand inside the void this time. Instead, he took a step forward as he walked inside the space tear. There was a ripple in the space above the lake, and 10 meters away from Shun Long's original location, Shun Long's body appeared above the lake. Having miscalculated this time, Shun Long fell inside the lake, his body now drenched in water. And yet there was a big smile hanging on his face, as he had just figured things out. Little Black's shock was evident as he flew in the air around Shun Long, who was now swimming towards the shore of the lake. Master, how can you tear space open when you haven't even reached the spirit realm? Shun Long was still smiling as he swam over to the shore. He lied down on the grass next to the lake as he looked at Little Black and said, "This is thanks to the Stone of Time's body refining technique, the monarch's eternal body." Shun Long didn't hide anything from Little Black as he continued. "This was the second time that I tried to tear space open. The first time, the tear in space was very small, and as my hand passed through it, it had appeared just 2 meters away from me. However, this time the tear I created was at the size of a human, and the distance I traveled was 5 times larger than before. This time I could also clearly feel my energy being drained as I was tearing the void open. The larger the tear in space I create and the bigger the distance it covers, the more energy I have to use, it seems." Little Black's astonishment was evident from his expression as he still hadn't recovered. His jaw was slightly trembling as he said, "Master, your affinity with the element of space must be at a very high level for you to be able to tear space open and only have to use such a small amount of energy for it. Usually peak rank 3 spirit realm experts can tear space open just 100 meters away from their original location, but they have to use almost all their chi to do this, while Master can create a tear in space 10 meters away just by using some of your physical energy. This is simply impossible to believe." And yet Shun Long knew that 10 meters wasn't his limit yet. After taking a deep breath, he clenched his fist tightly as he used his full strength to punch the air in front of him. A gust of wind followed after Shun Long's hand, as the space in front of him was once again torn apart. The size of the space tear was the same as the last time, however Little Black could feel a qualitative difference this time around. More than half of Shun Long's strength had been consumed with this move. His body then instantly disappeared, as it appeared again on a patch of grass 45 meters away from his original location. Shun Long then looked at Little Black and pondered seriously for a while. If I used Little Black's strength, no one in the floating cloud sect would probably be a match against him, but Little Black is a dragon after all, and right now he is extremely weak. If his existence is exposed, it's unknown what problems it may bring. If anyone above the middle stages of the spirit realm happens to hear about a black dragon, I doubt that they will let the opportunity go like that. In the end, I shouldn't allow Little Black to reveal his existence unless absolutely necessary." With these thoughts in mind, Shun Long explained to Little Black the situation they were in, as well as everything about the floating cloud sect and the demonic mountain region, as well as the outer sect examination. Little Black returned to the space inside the Stone of Time, but his spiritual strength was scanning everything around Shun Long. Shun Long also stored the rank 3 double-headed fish's body inside the Stone of Time as he asked Little Black if there were any people or beasts around them. "Master, in direct proximity of 2 miles around us, there is no human or magic beast. However, there are approximately 400 humans and more than 500 magic beasts in the surrounding 30 miles. From these magic beasts, more than a third of them have already reached rank 2. I also sense a group of humans in a secluded area around 14 miles away from our current location, fighting with a middle stage rank 2 earth bear. Apparently, The bear is protecting a profound earth fruit inside its cave. Quickly, lead me there, Shun Long said in a slightly anxious tone. Now that Little Black was inside the Stone of Time space, Shun Long could directly use his spiritual strength to communicate with him. The reason that he was so anxious wasn't to save those disciples or the birth bear, but instead to obtain the profound earth fruit. There were 3 different ways for Shun Long to advance his monarch's eternal body. The first way was to consume the flesh of higher rank magic beasts. The flesh rank 2 magic beasts or the rank 3 double-headed fish inside the Stone of Time was one such example. The second way was to directly consume rare herbs or fruits like the profound earth fruit or the blood vermilion fruit. Although a big part of the fruit's medicinal efficacy would be wasted this way, it was still more than 100 times faster compared to slowly strengthening the body by eating magical beasts' flesh. However, there was an even better and faster way to advance. That would be by first refining the fruits into pills and then consuming them. Although it would be possible for a rank 3 bronze grade alchemist to refine something like the profound earth fruit into a pill, the same would be absolutely impossible if we swapped the profound earth fruit with a blood vermilion fruit. Although both fruits were rank 3 medicinal ingredients, the profound earth fruit needed at least an alchemist at the rank 3 bronze grade to be refined into a pill, while the blood vermilion fruit needed at least a rank 1 silver grade alchemist to successfully refine it into a pill. And so the third way was the most uncommon of them all. Following Little Black's directions, Shun Long soon arrived at the place where the battle was taking place. There were 5 disciples banded as a group, all of them fighting the birth bear. Of those disciples, 2 of them wore the floating cloud sex robes while the other 3 were dressed in brown robes, indicating that they were disciples of the iron-hardened sect. It's him, Shun Long thought while he was sitting at the top of a tree watching the fight. One of the 2 disciples that were dressed in yellow robes was short and had red hair. He had left an impression on Shun Long when he had asked Elder Lu earlier about the first place reward. This person was Guan Hong, the peak rank 3 earth grade expert. The other disciple of the floating cloud sect was at the middle stage of rank 1 in the earth grade, while from the 3 disciples of the iron-hardened sect, 2 of them were at the middle rank 3 while the only woman in the group was at the early rank 1 in the earth grade. Shun Long wasn't going to let these people take the profound earth fruit now that he knew about it, but the problem was how to take it. Everyone, including the birth bear and the 5 people in their group, were paying attention to the profound earth fruit, even while they were fighting. Shun Long could use his teleportation ability to take the fruit and then leave, but he didn't want to expose himself just yet. All of a sudden, Little Black's voice was heard in Shun Long's head. "Master, don't be anxious to make a move yet. Did you discover something?" Shun Long asked. "There is a rank 2 iron-winged eagle 300 meters away from our location, and it has set its sights here." "Of course it has. The iron-winged eagle is a natural enemy of the birth bear. Now that someone has come to find trouble with it, how could it let this chance go?" Aside from the iron-winged eagle, there are also 2 little girls who are approaching, around 1 mile away from our east. They will surely stumble upon this fight, and I doubt that they will let the profound earth fruit go like that. One of them is at the peak of rank 3 in earth grade, while the other one is in the middle rank 3. If the fight kept going for much longer, the number of people who would find out about the existence of the profound earth fruit would increase over and over. Meanwhile, in the fight happening in front of the cave, the 2 middle rank 3 disciples of the iron-hardened sect, as well as Guan Hong, were fighting the earth bear head-on, while the girl from the iron-hardened sect and the other disciple from the floating cloud sect were providing support from the distance. The birth bear was very tough as both its offense and defense were balanced. Every time that Guan Hong's group attacked it, it defended back with its sharp claws, and every attack that the bear sent would prove life-threatening if their group didn't dodge in time. "Shurchong, Shurshan, if you keep holding back, more and more people will gather after they notice our fight, and taking the profound earth fruit then will be much more difficult then," Guan Hong shouted at the 2 iron-hardened sect disciples that were fighting with him. These 2 were a pair of brothers, called Shurchong and Shurshan. Although they weren't the strongest in the iron-hardened sect, when the 2 of them were fighting together, they were even slightly stronger than Guan Hong. The elder brother of the 2, Shun, who was using a long saber, snorted as he responded. Are you trying to say that you have been going all out by now, Guanhong? If you want us brothers to use our strength for you to take the profound earth fruit for yourself, you must think that we really are naive. After all, even if we brothers used our full strength, we still wouldn't be able to kill this earth bear just by ourselves. Or else, why would we fight together with you then? The spear-wielding Shun nodded his head and Guanhong just snorted, but he knew that everything Shun said was the truth. His eyes had turned determined as he looked at the two brothers and said, Distract the birth bear for 10 breaths of time. I need this much time to activate my martial skill. When I use it, you better not hold back either, because that will be our only chance to kill this beast, or else forget about the profound earth fruit. As Guanhong finished speaking, he took out a dagger from his robe and started infusing his chi in it. Meanwhile, a pair of girls dressed in blue robes had also arrived at the scene, their eyes fully focused on the profound earth fruit. Everyone, including Shun Long, were startled that Guanhong knew a martial skill. There were plenty yellow-grade cultivation techniques spread around in the mortal world and the cultivation world as well. However, yellow-grade martial skills were much rarer than yellow-grade cultivation techniques. Martial skills were different from cultivation techniques to begin with. Although one needed a cultivation technique to train in and become stronger, martial skills were a cultivator's hidden card as well. Of course, cultivation techniques at the black grade and above weren't freely circulated in the world, but instead were all kept as a tight secret inside every sect. The value of these cultivation techniques was at least on par with black grade martial skills, if not higher. After all, the grade of a cultivation technique would indicate how fast a disciple would progress, while a martial skill was a way for the disciple to protect themselves. The two girls that had just arrived on the scene started discussing. Senior sister, look. That guy over there also knows a martial skill. The shorter one of the two girls who had her hair in 2 small buns said as she pointed towards Guanhong. The senior sister, however, only glanced at Guanhong once, before turning her sights on the profound earth fruit as she said, It's only an early yellow-grade martial skill. He requires so much time to prepare for it that if he was fighting the earth bear one-on-one, he would already be dead by now. The senior sister, who was also dressed in blue robes, had a beautiful face and short black hair, as well as a slender body. Her BOBs were average in size, but her bow was definitely a handful. If one compared her with Lu Mei, who Shun Long had met in the Alchemist Guild, her appearance may be slightly lacking. However, she was still a beauty that was on par with Lan Jinjing. As Shun Long watched the two brothers, Shun and Shun alternate between themselves trying to draw the earth bear's attention, Guanhong had already finished charging up his martial skill. As he had infused a lot of his chi inside his dagger, he shouted, Flying slash. As he slashed with his dagger in the air, the chi he had infused became a blade that flew towards the earth bear. The bear had already split its attention between fighting Shun and Shun, as well as defending itself from the occasional attacks from the other 2 members of this 5-man group, while also paying attention to its profound earth fruit at the same time. As Guanhong's attack approached it, it didn't have any time to dodge and tried to defend with its claws, but that was when the pair brothers showed their teamwork as they both attacked the bear toward its eyes and heart simultaneously. The bear could only defend against the brothers' joint attack, as Guanhong's slash hit it straight at its neck, leaving behind a huge cut that had nearly reached the bear's bones. Blood was sent high up in the air as the bear roared in pain. However, thanks to its thick hide, it had survived the hit, although it was now heavily injured. Just when everyone thought that their fight was almost done, a huge screech sounded in the air as a 2-meter, 6 feet, eagle, with sharp, gray-colored feathers appeared from the sky as it directly chased the birth bear. The injured earth bear instantly turned to flee as it saw the eagle, completely disregarding everything else at this point. The eagle chased the bear relentlessly around the forest. As everyone's attention turned to the iron-winged eagle who was chasing the birth bear, Shun Long, who was waiting for this chance, instantly opened a space tear as he appeared next to the profound earth fruit. It only took a moment for him to appear inside the cave, snatch the fruit, and then open another spatial tear to leave the cave from the other side. However, just as he was about to leave, The senior sister from the roaring wind pavilion had then screamed. The profound earth fruit. Everyone's attention immediately turned to the cave, as they saw Shun Long, who had his back turned on them, disappear inside the spatial tear. Although they saw his yellow robes, which betrayed that he was a disciple of the floating cloud sect, they couldn't see anything else, as he had suddenly vanished into thin air. Noamai, profound earth fruit. Both the senior sister and Guanhong shouted at the same time. Guanhong's group had suffered the biggest loss this time, as they had been the ones who had first discovered the fruit and injured the earth bear as well, only for someone else to play the fisherman and steal their spoils from underneath their nose. Guanhong's eyes were spitting fire as he looked at the blue-robed senior sister who had just claimed that the profound earth fruit belonged to her. Since the person who stole it had disappeared into nothing, Guanhong's group had nowhere to vent their anger to. Now, as if they had suddenly found an outlet for their pent-up emotions, their group of five eyed the pair of female disciples from the Raging Wind Pavilion. Who are you? Guanhong and the Shi brothers asked threateningly as they surrounded the two girls. The senior sister ignored them as she turned to leave. However, Guanhong blocked her path as he said, "No matter who you are, if you want to leave, you will also leave behind your survival points." Anger clouded the senior sister's eyes as her peak rank 3 aura exploded as she attacked Guanhong, and a fierce battle of 2 versus 5 started. Meanwhile, Shun Long, who had just appeared 30 meters away from the other side of the cave, could now hear the fight that had broken out. Directly leaving the scene, Shun Long sent his spiritual strength inside the Stone of Time to inspect the profound earth fruit before heading towards the deeper parts of the demonic mountain region.